Welcome to EPG Pathshala. In today's session, I am going to discuss about exception handling. In today's session, I am discuss about what is exception, how you use it, and I will demonstrate by example how you can apply exception handling. So, generally you believe that the program written is error free and will execute successfully. However, in few cases the program can terminate while it is executing. For example, if we have written a program which connects to a particular website and download the web page. So, in normal condition the page will execute as expected, but suppose the program runs on a computer which has not internet connection, then the program will produce unexpected output. There can be similar situation where the program open a file to read it, but the file is not exist. Such cases are known as a exception. Exception results in abnormal execution and it may lead to abnormally terminate the program, and we know that that will be bad for programming. Generally program should terminate gracefully way. Exception are nothing but runtime errors. When writing the code, you should consider any unexpected runtime error. Exception handling allows the program to execute as there is no error in the code, or it can terminate the program gracefully. Now, you would like to know what are various types of errors. So, error will be three types. They are known as a syntax error, logical errors, and runtime errors. Syntax errors are errors which shows syntactically problem to you. Say for example, when you write a code and there is some problem with syntax. So, this is known as a syntax error. Let me show by example. So, let me start my WAMP server and I will show you what actually the exception error in syntax error is. So, here I open my local host and EPG, I have a folder exception handling, and in that the first one is example of syntax error. Let me show you code for this one. I open my WAMP folder and in www folder EPG, in EPG exception handling and types of error. So, look at the code here. Here I just written a very simple code for calculate simple interest, that $p is 1000, $rate is 10 and $n is 2, and now I write $si to calculate simple interest is principal means $p into $r into $l. This is the formula for principal interest, p into r into n divided by 100, and then I want to display the result. So, I write echo simple interest for principal, rate and duration is this. So, instead of writing echo, I write EHCO. Now, when I run it, it shows parse error, that means it is a syntax error because my syntax is wrong. If I make it echo, and as I use Notepad++, I know that the syntax keyword will display in blue color. So, now it will display another error. This is your logical error, undefined variable is this, right. So, this is syntax error. Another one is you can say logical error. So, logical error is what, that though it run the program correct, but the output is not as you expected. Say for example, here I write the code for $p is 1000, $r is 10, $r is 10, $n is 2, and I calculate SI is p into r into n divided by 10, not 100. So, when I run that program, the program run, but the output is not expected because my formula is not correct. So, if I open that code, say for example, let me show you, if I run that code, logical error. So, it displays simple interest is 2000, actually it should be 200, but I write code that divided by, instead of 100 I write 10. So, this is logical error, and third one is known as a runtime error. So, that will occur during runtime. Let us say for example, here I show you example for that one. I create one array named $cities, which I include 4 cities. Now, I use variable count to count the cities, and I write loop for I $i is 0, $i less than or equal to count, and $i plus plus, and display each cities. If I run this program, So, it shows me runtime error. The reason is count will give you number 4, but in array index start from 0. So, as I written here less than or equal to in my that loop condition, it shows error that undefined offset 4. So, this is runtime error. If I remove this equal to symbol from it and now if I execute it, the program will work successfully. So, these are the types of errors. Now, exception is nothing but it is a runtime errors, or exception is runtime error, and exception handling is used to handle unexpected error condition. Exception handling is change the normal flow of code execution if specified error means exception occurs. Exception can be thrown from your own exception and then write codes to handle it. Now, when any exception is occur, you may require to throw it. So, to throw it you can use new exception, because exception is a class and exception is a base class for all the exception. Even you can extend it and create your own exception, but for example, I just give you very simple syntax to create how to create new exception. So, you can use new exception and it takes two parameter, one is compulsory, other one is optional, message and code. Message is compulsory, which you provide any message and it is string, and code which is in optional, in case code is not supplied it will be take a value as a 0. Now, you require to throw statement is used to throw in exception. So, to throw you can throw a new or existing exception object, and syntax to throw is throw and exception object. So, let me show you one example for that one, and when exception is occurred the current code, but let me first show you that what will how you can write code for exception. So, let me write code. So, I will start my coding by writing opening and closing PHP tag file, save as, and let me save this file as a exception demo dot PHP, right. Instead of let me write throw demo, because I am throwing exception. So, I write throw demo dot PHP. Here I write now very simple way, public function, let me calculate simple interest. So, I write public function simple and it takes 3 parameter, $p for principal, $r for rate and $n for duration. Now, I want to check that we know that the formula is okay, but I would like to throw exception if either principal, rate or interest is less than or equal to 0. So, it should throw exception. So, I write here if $p is less than or equal to 0 or $r is less than or equal to 0 or $n is less than or equal to 0. So, I will throw exception. So, for that I write throw new. Now, it is object of exception class. So, exception, and let me just display message provide valid input values, right. Very simple message that will occur, and if all are this correct, then I can write $answer, or let me write $si is, I will write formula that $p multiply $r multiply $n divided by 100 and return $si. Now, I want to use it. So, let me assign some value, let us say for example, principal is 1000 rupees, rate is 10% and duration is for 2 years. Now, I can call that method. So, I write $answer is si and provide value for $p, $r and $n, and I just display echo br simple interest is, let us say $answer. Let me save this code. The file name is throwdemo.php. So, let me open it, right. So, sorry, throwdemo.php is here, yes. So, it says syntax error unexpected public on line 2. Oh, function is always public. So, I do not need to write it. So, I run it. So, when I run it, it says undefined function si on line. Oh, function name is simple, variable I define as their si here. So, let me save this and run it. So, it will display simple interest is 200. Now, suppose if I make, let us say for example, rate is 0 and then I run this code, then it will display fatal error uncaught exception, because exception is thrown, but not catch, that is why it display this message, and it also display exception provide valid input values on line 6. So, this is how I can throw exception. So, whenever an exception is occur, the current code state is saved, the code execution will transfer to predefined exception handler block, and depending on the situation the handler take action like terminate the script execution or continue execute the script from different location in the code. This is throw demo I have taken. Now, there is a various method of exception object. The methods are get message. So, it returns the message set in the exception object. Get code method returns the code set in the exception object. Get file method returns the file in which exception object was thrown. Get line method returns the line number in which exception object was thrown. Get trace method returns an array having stack trace for the exception object. Get trace as string returns string having stack trace of exception object, and underscore to string which returns a string having exception object, which provide all the information of all above method. And just write get and then the first letter is capital when any of this method are using, whether get message, get line, get file, etc. Now, to handle the exception you have to use TryCatch statement. So, when an exception object is thrown, your application need to catch it and to handle it. If the exception is not catch, it ends with a runtime error, and we use exception handling so that our program will either terminate gracefully or it will display proper message and then terminate, and that is why you need to catch it. So, what is the general syntax for TryCatch statement? So, the general syntax is try, then you write some statement into it, and then catch, you provide exception class and its object, and then statement. Optionally, there can be more than one catch statement with the same syntax. So, TryCatch statement is used to catch any expression which are thrown. In TryCatch statement, try block contains the statement which may throw exceptions, catch block contains the statement to execute when exception is thrown in try block. At the beginning of catch block, you can quote the name of class that define exception followed by a variable which allows you to accept the exception object. If necessary, you can code throw statement inside a catch block to rethrow the exception. Let me first demonstrate the TryCatch. Okay, let me show you example of that. And the exception class represent most general type of exception, and its suitable its subclass represent more specific types of error. So, there are many class of exception, but you should write in such a way. In case you code multiple catch statement, you should code more specific exception class first and end with exception class, and you can create a custom exception object by inheriting the exception, but let me first show you how simply we can use TryCatch statement. So, let me just copy the same code already I have written in throwdemo.php. Now, I will save this file as a trycatch.php. So, here I write the code already written is very similar to that one. Now, what I make changes here, that the function as it is, throw new exception, this one is this. Now, here I use try block, try for getting that value, and inside that we use this, and then catch. So, we use exception, this is the class name, and object name is $e, and let display echo, let us say br error in file. Now I can use all the methods already available. So I can use $e and the method name is get file. Then I can use br line number for the error is I want to display. So again I can write $e and get line, and finally to display message I can display error message is $e and get message, right. So in catch block I write all this error. Let me save this. Here rate is, if I make first 10%, then it should not catch the exception and execute normally. The example is TryCatch.php. So as per last modify, this is, so it displays simple interest, but if I make this value as 0 and when any one of the 0, then this exception is thrown. So now that will be caught by this catch block and it will display that error in that file. Line number is this, error message is this, because I provide here error message, provide valid input values. In fact, you can write on exit statement also here to exit from after your if not work particularly, we can execute from the script. So this is about try catch block. You can rethrow statement also or create your own exception. This is known as a custom exception. This sometime may require to create custom exception is that instead of the same exception, you want to make your own exception. So you can extend the base exception class, and if required you can create your own method as well as your property, etc. I will demonstrate by how you can make your own exception. So as I say, exception class represent most generic type of exception and its subclass represent more specific types of error. Let us say for example, again I use the same program here. So let me just copy paste the code. I just want to make very little change here, and let me save this file. Save as a, I will write as a custom, or let me create my exception dot php. This file name is my exception dot php, and now here I create one class. Let me create this class name is class my exception, and it extends. We know that inherit we use keyword extends, and which class? Exception class. Inside that we create one method public function, and let us say the method is my message or exception, whatsoever you like. Inside it let me write echo br error message from my exception class. Then again I use br and write file is, you can say to get the file, let me write it is inside class. So I use the this, and the method name is get file dot, again I use br and line number is $this and get line, and finally to display message is $this and get message, because all these are the methods of base class, and as we know that when we inherit that class we can use it. Now I write throw, so I can write throw new, which class? Class name is my exception, right, and in catch I write exception or my exception class, and it's $e. Now, I do not need to write any of that code. So, I just put into comments, or I can delete it also. Let me delete that code, and method name is my message. So, I just need to call echo $e and call the method my message. Let me save this code and let me run that. This is my class. Inside that class I create one public function. Class definition is complete. Then we write simple function and throw my exception. Then in try block and catch block we catch my exception and use this method. So, let me run that code. So, it says error message from my exception class, and these all are the exception of that. Now, as I say, there can be multiple catch also, like this is for specific thing, like say for example, I can write also catch exception $e, and here again I write the same code as I written earlier, this one, right. I just make copy paste. So, you can use get file, get line, get message and exit. Now, if I run this, so though there is a multiple class, it will display it, and if I throw exception class, not my exception, but throw exception, and now I run this, save this one and execute it. So, it will get from that class also, right. But thing you should remember is that when there are more than one exception you create, like say for example, here I write my exception, and now if I run this, it will display this. But if I change the catch order, first I use, because catch exception class is the most generic class, and it is the super class of all that, and this is we created my exception we created as a subclass. So, though the only order is changed. So, now you can look at here, if I run this, though I get for my message first, because the throw my exception, but catch it will be first this exception. So, when you use multiple catch statement, you should consider that most specific exception class you should write first, and end with it should be more specific first and most general is last. You can create custom exception class by inheriting the exception class. This we already taken, as we know that exception class is the base class. It can be inherited to create custom exception object, and custom exception class inherits the properties and methods from exception class, and it can be extended by adding custom functions to it. This is the example we take. Now, sometime you may require to rethrow the exception, that the situation that an exception differently than the standard way. So, an exception is thrown. If necessary, you can code throw statement inside a catch block to rethrow the exception. Let me show one example for rethrow. So, let me open that file, or here again I also give you one demo of multiple exception. First, let me give you demo of multiple exception. Look at here, I create one custom exception, then in error message I create one function, and then check for each one. If either all are 0, then throw new custom exception class. If any one is 0, then throw new exception for principal, rate and duration, and then I use catch custom exception, and finally this. I just show you demonstrate that to give you better idea about multiple exception. So, look at here, here rate is only 0, that is why it shows provide valid rate. If I make rate is correct and this one is 0, so it will quote this exception, n is 0, and it provide error message accordingly, right. And if I open for rethrow exception, so here I open create custom exception class and extend it, and then again I use try. Inside try block there is another try block, and then through new exception. So, you throw new exception here for p less than 0, rate 0, again new exception, and duration 0, and any one of is 0, then again you throw custom exception, and then catch exception, and then inside catch again you throw new custom exception, and in custom exception you display just error message. If it is not catch, means all value are correct, then not correct, but though you want to display the result. So, you call the simple function and display the output. So, this is you can rethrow the statement, because once in try block you throw, so it come to exception, but in exception you are again throwing it. Sometime it may require, like say for example, some system error. So, system error will not be helpful to normal users, but it will be helpful to developer. So, developer can get it, but user will not get it. So, that is why you may require to catch it rethrow. In short, you should remember, if there is a exception is thrown, it must be catch, and if you write try block, then there must be at least one catch block. If I run that code for this one, let me run rethrow exception. So, look at here, enter valid rate, error on that line, this is the file, and right now I displayed the end of here, I calculate this value, that is why I display this result. So, this is rethrow. So, what are the things you need to remember for exception? That write executable code in try block to help to catch potential exceptions. Each try or throw statement must have at least one corresponding catch block. Multiple catch blocks can be used to catch various types of exceptions. Exception can be thrown or rethrown in a catch block within a try block. The thumb rule is that if you are throwing something, you have to catch it. So, this is all about exception. Let us summarize today's session. We know that there are three types of error. These errors are logical errors, syntax error or runtime error. Exception is one type of runtime error you can consider. When you write coding, you should code such a way that everything is not going way, and you should handle any unexpected runtime error by using exception. Exception allows you to terminate your program gracefully, and to handle exception you can use TryCatch block and throw exception. You can create your own custom exception by extending the basic exception class. So, this is all about exception. These all are the references I have used to make this content. Thank you very much for viewing this session. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.